This episode brought to you by corpse starch flavored Spam. Spam, it's where their friends are. Hello and welcome to Necromundown. Today we're talking about corpse grinder cults.
Sorry, that was my chainsaw.
Yeah, your chainsaw needs like some oil.
Yeah, it does.
It's electric.
Yeah, I had to plug it in.
You've got a guy who has to plug it into the corner, and you can't like go outside of the range of that because your electric.
That's a
rotary flensing saw.
exactly.
So, corpse grinder cults. Brief lore.
Mm-hmm.
So, in Necromunda and in the Imperium as a whole for humans, the majority of sustenance is recycled people. It's a reference to Soylent Green, if you're familiar with that. You know, Soylent Green is people. Mm-hmm. It's a sci-fi movie where the plot twist is that this super cheap food stuff, Soylent Green, is actually reprocessed corpse. Mm-hmm. In the Imperium, it's called corpse starch. And like
they're not even hiding it.
It's not a secret.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that's what it is. Like, that's how it works. Fun fact from a scientific point of view, that wouldn't actually work because when you consume matter, 90% of the energy is lost.
Yeah.
So, like, this wouldn't, even with the numbers of death at play in the Imperium, this wouldn't actually be sustainable. Just in case you're thinking of starting your own cannibalism-based space cult. Just letting you know. Now, someone's got to render those corpses down. Mm-hmm. And those someone's is the Mercator Palatus on Necromunda or the Corpse Guild, which is a very legitimate organization. Mm-hmm. Like, the Corpse Guild is not this shady thing. Like, it's someone has that job, and it's actually a very legitimate job.
They're basically the guys at the farmer's market.
Yeah.
And the deli.
Now, the problem is that every now and then, one of the guys on the ground of the Corpse Guild, the people doing the actual rendering and the boning and cutting and processing of human beings, heeds the dark voices to take a bite, like before things are cooked.
He let the intrusive thoughts win.
Literally. Like, the intrusive thoughts win, and they take a bite, and that starts them on the road to being a cultist. Now, reading between the lines here, the cult is a Khorne cult. Yeah. So Khorne being the blood god of Warhammer 40,000. Khorne is never mentioned by name in the corpse grinder cults. Most people on Necromunda, we talked about this in our Chaos video, most people on Necromunda would never actually know the name Khorne or the name of any of the Chaos gods. They just think he's called the Lord of Skin and Sinew or the Blood God or something like that. But once you take a bite and it gives you power through Khorne, you get addicted to it. By the way, the corpse cults know this is a problem because the masks that the initiates wear are actually masks designed to stop workers from taking bites of things. So clearly you know it's an issue.
Welcome to the corpse grinder cult.
Yes.
Here is your mask. What's that for?
You'll know later. I think that every now and then on the line there's just someone going, "Oh, that's what this is for."
Oh, yeah, that's great.
So anyway, and that starts you onto a path of Khorne worship, basically, of cannibalism and using those deadly tools. That's the lore. Gameplay-wise, melee, rip and tear,
punch.
Which is ironic because the Doomslayer would actually have a field day with these guys.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I want to see that. Painted a Paladin Enforcer as the Doomslayer and just
that sounds great.
Damage 8 fists. So, corpse grinder cults are melee. They do melee almost exclusively, although we'll talk about that.
Yeah. If you ignore their juvies,
yep,
they are entirely melee.
They do melee better than anybody else in the game, bar none.
Yeah, period.
Your champions are better melee models than the most melee model of Brute most of the time. Like, not between their skills, their stats, and their weapon access. Corpse grinder cults are the single best melee force in the game, end of story, bar none. You can't even take pistols on anyone except your juvies.
Right.
Your leaders, champions, and your basic gangers can't even take pistols. You can give them all grenades.
Yes.
Because that's equipment. That's not a weapon. That's war gear. But close combat weapons and only close combat weapons. They also have fantastic skills to back it up.
They do.
Speaking of which, let's talk about those skills.
Their bespoke skill set is called savagery or savagery. Savagery.
You just dealt me so much psychic damage by saying that. And I was about to start singing Savages from Pokemon.
Pokeanis. Anyway, the first skill is called the Avatar of Blood. So it should be mentioned a few times. Unsaved wounds is mentioned a couple times in this Savagery skill set. And it should be discussed with your arbitrator what it means.
So for this one, it's not so bad. For the last one, it's real bad. Let's talk about it at the end, because that'll give it some context.
Okay, sounds good. Avatar of Blood. For every unsaved wound dealt against an enemy in close combat, because this is what you do, you heal 1 flesh wound.
That's not bad, but it's only flesh wounds and not wounds. I feel like it should be wounds, too.
It should be both.
Yeah.
But there is very, we've said this a few times, it is really, really hard to remove flesh wounds. There's very few and far between. The ability to get rid of it, especially when like your leaders and gangers have pretty good toughness.
Yes.
Leaders and champions have really good toughness. Being able to remove flesh wounds is pretty strong.
The only reason this is not an amazing skill is because of the other skills on this list.
Yeah. It doesn't help you kill stuff. It just makes it better when you do kill stuff.
Right. The next one is a Bloodlust, the name of a Mystery Science Theater episode, which is a parody of The Dangerous Game. Most Dangerous Game, sorry. Anyway, you can, so normally when you do a coup de grace, you are giving up your ability to consolidate, which is move 2 inches into cover. Unlike in 40K, where consolidation is a chance to move into more combat, consolidation in Necromunda is a chance to move into cover, to get out of the way. This one lets you consolidate even after you coup de grace. Not bad.
Not bad.
Can help keep you alive. 2 inches is really not very far.
It's not.
And that's why I don't like this too much.
Up next is the Crimson Haze. You auto-pass any nerve test while engaged. Niche. Not terrible. Nerve tests are basically only when your guys go down or get killed or whatever, you have a chance to run. It's just you don't have a chance to run. It's fine. It's probably my least favorite here.
Yeah, too niche. Frenzy. Every one of these should be accompanied by a musical sting from like Metalocalypse or something like that. You know,
that'd be great.
Frenzy. You gain an additional D3 attacks on the charge. Remember, on the charge, you get +1 attack. This gives you an additional D3, but -1 to hit.
That you can mitigate that very easily.
You can mitigate that very easily with your weapon options, and plus D3 attacks is a lot.
Yes. So leaders and the leader only gets a 2-up to hit.
Yes.
So being able to do that, get plus D3 attacks, and then take a weapon with +1 to hit or something, just completely cancel it out with only plus side.
More attacks.
Yes. Next is Killing Blow, which is instead of rolling all attack dice, you can choose to make just 1 attack. It is at double strength and double damage and no armor save allowed.
Yes. Does not work with pistols.
That would be hilarious, though.
It's a kill shot.
The only problem with this is I feel like rolling all of your attacks.
You're gonna get there anyway. You're gonna get there anyway.
But if you want to one punch a guy through the ceiling, it's a possibility.
Yeah. And then last but certainly not least,
probably best.
Best, no matter which way you read this.
Sure.
Let's be honest. Slaughterborn. Every unsaved wound in melee adds +1 inch of movement for rest of the battle. So let's talk about unsaved wounds.
Yes.
Because there's 2 ways to read this. Number 1, you could read this as, and I think this is rules as written. I'm always getting confused on this one, which is terrible to say when you're doing a show about Necromunda rules.
Yeah.
But I can never keep this straight. I believe rules as written is that every unsaved wound happens regardless of how many wounds the enemy you're targeting has.
Right.
Which means if I attack base Juvie with like no armor save and I get through all my attacks and I do like 10 damage to him, that's 10 unsaved wounds. That would mean I get an additional 10 inches of movement.
That is what it says.
The problem is that is completely broken.
It is. For the rest of the game.
And you could keep doing it.
Yep.
If you take it the more reasonable way and you kill a Juvie and you get +1 inch movement, that's still really good.
It is still really strong.
Or more importantly, you kill a champion or a leader and get 2 inches. That's still really good.
And it stacks for everything that you kill, and the more you kill, the faster you go. And
yes, I think for sanity's sake, keep this sane.
Yes,
like tautology department there. I think to keep this sane. Keep it. Don't say that like if I do 10 damage to you, but only because. My logic on this, and this is a lore logic, welcome to Necromunda, because if you're playing it like rules as written, it's broken. Which that's Necromunda. You choosing to play it like that is not necessarily wrong.
No, I agree.
Just make sure you and your opponent agree on this before you start playing. First off, it does not work on vehicles because vehicles don't have wounds.
That's
they
true.
have hull points, which makes complete sense.
Yeah. Blood.
Corn cares about blood.
Yep.
And
What is this? Windshield wiper fluid?
a person only has so much blood.
That's
I
fair.
think that doing 10 damage to a single pitiful juvie should not give you a bigger bonus. You killed him. He's dead. His blood's out no matter what.
Are you telling me that Juve and a leader have 2 different amounts of blood?
You have big. You are bigger. You must have bigger guts.
That does make sense for
Doom guy told us this.
That's true. And then there's the Orlok leader who has just even more blood.
Yeah, he's got even bigger guts. My point is that from both gameplay and also like, lore or narrative or whatever, it feels like you should get a bigger reward for bigger targets.
Yes.
And even 1 inch in Necromunda is really good because that means that instead of an 8-inch max charge, now you're 9 inches.
Yep.
And then 10. Like, it still punishes your opponent for putting easy targets, which is what it's supposed to do, right? Supposed to punish your opponent for putting easy targets first.
Yeah.
It's punishing you for the way you're supposed to counter melee, which is screens, which is good. That's good. That is good gameplay. I don't think you should be able to absolutely blend a single guy and get 10 inches of movement.
Yeah, no, I
That's not
agree.
fun.
As a CGC player, I agree. That's too good.
Just
There is also it should be said that there is a technical maximum movement on what, because it says you can't increase your skills beyond blah blah blah.
yes.
There is argument to say that this leads to that, and you have a maximum that you can cap at, and you're done.
Wait, and I believe the maximum is 9 inches,
I think it's 9.
which is still really terrifying.
Oh yeah, it's horrifying.
Yeah, I got my Mr. Snick up to that.
That's true.
My Sump Beast last campaign was at like I think 8-inch base movement, and 8-inch base movement is scary on someone who wants to hug you.
Yeah, agreed.
And that's not a corpse grinder cultist. That was just a snake.
As you can probably tell from the fact that we've spent the entire time of talking about Slaughterborn as
Slaughterborn's a good one.
Slaughterborn's insane.
Yeah. That being said, the other ones are not bad.
Yeah, the other ones are there's like
Only Crimson Haze and maybe Bloodlust are not great.
Bloodlust. I could see an argument for.
Yes.
Crimson Haze is so niche that it probably won't come up. The other ones are all usable, and then Slaughterborn is insane.
House mechanics. They don't have any mechanics, but they do have some restrictions.
They do.
Maximum of 3 champions. Not the 2 of enforcers. You can
Yeah,
only
weirdly
have
enough.
3 champions. End of story. They covered this in the FAQ. If one of your guys upgrades to champions and gives you 4, you have to retire one. And retiring in corpse grinder cults means you get thrown in the grinder.
Yeah,
Like, so
you become food.
yeah.
I don't even know if they grind them up. They just like rip them anyway. This makes complete sense because if that was not the case, I fear that they would be broken.
They already are. We'll get to that. Your number of juvies must match or exceed the number of gangers at all times.
Yes. So it does say capital G gangers, not fighters.
Yes.
So it does not count against your leaders and champions, only your gangers and jubes.
Which we'll get to.
It's a weird.
And then your juvies have absolutely no weapon restrictions. That's as good as it sounds.
Yep. But only the juvies.
Doesn't matter. They're so good.
Yeah.
Let's get into the models and stats.
Let's get into the models.
First one.
We have the Bocha. Who's your leader? 130 credits. Movement 5, weapon skill 2.
The only base weapon skill 2 up for anyone in the game that's a leader or champion.
Yep. Bliss skill 4, but you don't really care.
These guys should not have... I mean, I guess because you can get grenades, but
Yeah, you can get
whatever.
grenades. Bliss skill 4, strength 4, toughness 4, 2 wounds, 4 initiative, only 2 attacks. It's only 2 attacks. It's fair. 5 leadership, 5 cool, 5 willpower, and 7 intelligence because they're not that bright. So every single one of these comes with a skill.
Yes.
Sorry, I shouldn't say skill because skill is a thing. Every single one of these comes with a special ability.
A baked-in ability.
A baked-in ability.
Another thing to make them better than everybody else.
Yes, it is for the leader. It is called First to the Fray, which gives you a D6 charge instead of a D3. So that speed 5 ain't so bad, huh? Being able to move 11 inches potentially. Average of 8.5, whatever. Every single one of these guys has a mask.
Yeah.
And they are... I hate that they're different depending on which one.
It kind of makes sense, but it's weird.
They're like upgrading over time.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think the leader one is the worst one. Okay, not the worst.
It's not the worst. It's not as good as Cutter.
It's not as good as the the champion mask.
Kind of. It's weird. So
it is a 6-up invulnerable save and gives protection to wounds on your head and eye.
So like the lasting injuries that do head and eye.
Yeah. I think all the masks have that.
Yes, all the masks have that.
And it gives terrifying, which is basically upgraded fear.
Terrifying so an enemy must make a willpower check for any shoot or fight action.
Yes.
Not charge action. That's fearsome.
Yes.
Fearsome is enemies must pass a willpower check to attempt to charge you. This one, they can charge you for free, but to actually do the fight part, because remember, the fight action is part of the charge action, they have to pass a willpower check to fight or shoot you.
Yes.
Let's save that for the end, where we talk about the effect of that. Let's go through the models, and then we'll talk about it. Oh, he also comes with plate mail armor. Plate mail armor is 6-up save, 5-up in front arc against blast.
Yep.
It's not bad. You'll replace it, but it's good.
It's baby's first carapace armor.
Heavy carapace, yeah. Your cutter is your champion. He's 90 credits, 5-inch movement, 3-up weapon skill, 5-up ballistic skill. Still strength 4, but only toughness 3. So go down a toughness. 2 wounds, 4-up initiative, 2 attacks. 6, 6, 7, 8 for leadership, cool, willpower, and intelligence. His mask also has terrifying, but instead of a 6-up invulnerable, it just comes with a +1 to save, which is better to start. Not as good end game when you get more armor.
That's true.
But that's really late end game. So honestly, a lot of people just say this is the better mask.
Yeah. The only real thing is if your opponent has like a Melta and they're just cutting through all your armor anyway, the 6-up invuln is better than
Will give you
armor.
a chance, whereas the Melta just does not care.
Yeah.
He also has a worse ability, which is Dervish. He has a 360 vision arc when he's using a versatile weapon.
Yeah, that's so stupid.
It's got some use, but it sure ain't the other ones.
No. Next, we have your basic ganger, which is the Skinner.
Skinner.
40 credits, movement 5, weapon skill 3 still on the ganger, ballistic skill 5, strength and toughness down to 3, both of them. 1 wound, 4-up initiative, 1 attack. 7, 7 for leadership, cool. Willpower is 8 and intelligence is 9. They're just getting dumber.
They're eating bodies. What do you want?
They also have plate mail armor, which we mentioned, which is nice that they come with armor to start. Their mask also gives +1 to their armor,
but it gives fearsome instead of terrifying.
Yes, so it's not as good against shooting.
Right,
it's only good against guns or against melee. And they are all treated as specialists for advancement. They don't randomize their advancements.
Nobody in your gang does random advancements,
which is a very, very, very good upgrade. The ability they get on top of that is Berserker, which is an extra attack on the charge. So they're basically 2 attacks base, because they're always going to charge unless they get charged, which is a mistake.
And last but certainly not least is your Juvie, who's only 25 credits, 5-inch movement, 4s and 4s, strength 3, toughness 3, 1 wound, 4-up initiative, 1 attack, leadership 8, 7 cool, but 9 willpower and intelligence.
Yeah.
So dumber than Hive Scum. He does not come with plate armor. He's the only one who comes with flak armor. He still comes with flak armer.
Yeah.
And his mask
for 25 credits.
Yeah. His mask is the worst, but it's still +1 save.
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, the way the ignoring head and eye injury works is like when you get one of those, you have to roll a d6, and on a 6, you ignore it, but you still go into recovery.
Yeah.
It's not that good. It works perfectly fine with the new injury chart, just because it still says head or eye injury. Yeah. Use your brain.
Doesn't an eye injury reduce your ballistic skill?
Yeah.
So they mostly don't care anyway?
Yeah, no.
Gotcha.
Well, these guys do.
These
because
ones do.
Juvies, 2 things. 1, can take any weapon. They're the only ones who can carry ranged weapons.
Yep.
And more importantly, they all come with built-in infiltrate.
Okay. I was going to say why. I know why.
Because they're initiates. They're despite wearing the mask, they're... I'm sorry. If there's a corpse grinder rebellion going on, if I see anybody wearing the mask and I live in Necromunda, they're dying. I don't care if they're innocent.
I more meant gameplay-wise.
Yeah.
All of your other guys are melee. These guys are the bodies in between so that your opponent doesn't just shoot you to death.
All right. So they don't have any brutes, pets, or vehicles. I mean, they have some new vehicle stuff in the Apocrypha, which we'll talk about.
We'll get to.
But let's take this opportunity to now talk about corpse grinder cults.
Yeah.
What the actual hell? What the actual heck is this? This is BS.
That was a long B.
Because, okay, I understand what the logic was trying to be.
Yes.
These guys can only do melee.
Yep.
And let's be very clear. You'll notice one thing that is not in here in any way, shape, or form is pitting mitigation.
Yes.
They don't have access to nerves of steel.
They will be pinned. That is their weakness.
Well, you know, as long as you pass a willpower check to actually shoot them.
Well, yeah.
And it used to be that you would just blast them, but now blast has a -2 to be hit. So Corpse Grinder cults benefited from that more than anybody else.
They did. It's true.
Template weapons are still good. Blast weapons are still good. They did get a minor downside in that now that if they charge from around a corner, they get -1 to hit.
That's true.
But that doesn't matter when you're rocking a 2-up ballistic skill or a weapon skill.
Yeah.
That alone, like, and well, I guess maybe we should save this for after we get into the weapons, but we're going to do it now. I don't care. Their weapons are really good. We'll talk more about them later. Their weapons are also very good. These guys are all feel way cheaper than they should be.
Yeah.
For their stats.
Yeah.
Way cheaper, come with abilities baked in that they don't pay for, have amazing access to weapons, amazing skills, and on top of that, your juvie can take absolutely any gun and gets infiltrate.
Yeah. Honestly, if they just took away the any weapon thing and gave them like a list of things they could take.
Hive scum weapons.
Hive scum weapons. It would be fine.
They'd still be really good.
They would.
A hive scum with a shotgun infiltrating is like, I'll take that any day.
Yeah. But no, you can give them webbers. You can give them flamers. You can give them plasma guns. You can give them.
Remember, everyone can still take grenades.
Yep. They actually even specifically in the Corpse Grinder Cult's upgrade kit for Forge World put a harpoon gun in there.
Yeah, that's actually on the their house list.
Yeah. They can just take a harpoon gun.
Don't take a harpoon gun.
I mean, don't.
But you
although
can.
It does pull them close.
It is funny. It's thematic and funny. Don't take one. I guess we'll save our overall views for the end.
Yeah.
But you can probably tell where this is going. You thought we didn't like the Ridge Hauler. The difference is that I don't dislike this.
Yeah.
Like the Ridge Hauler. We'll save it. Sorry.
Yes.
Let's talk about Ridge Haulers.
Yeah.
Vehicles. So they got on Apocrypha, which is the free rules online. That gives them some cool vehicle rules.
It's like a White Dwarf, but better.
Yeah, because it's free. They got their crew, 35 credits. It's got basic stats, but 6-up cool, but 8-up willpower. It's fine. It counts as a ganger. Use it. It adds flamers, harpoon guns, and heavy flamers to the vehicle weapons list. Okay, sure. That they got, they're the only ones who have this, a cargo load specific to them for the Ridge Hauler. They didn't get their own vehicle. They got their cargo load, which is the refrigerated container. Physically, it's just the cargo container.
Yeah.
It still has 2 weapon slots that come in, so, you know, still broken as heck for what it is. This one's only... I didn't put the credits on there. I think it's like 40 credits. But fighters, instead of giving the ammunition thing like a Munitorum container does, which, to be fair, is completely useless for corpse grinders.
Yeah, mostly.
Well, I guess not for the infiltrating juvies who are already rocking plasma guns.
That are not going to be anywhere near them because they have infiltrate.
If you everyone within an inch can use a double action to heal a wound or flesh wound on a 3-up. I don't like the on a 3-up part.
Yeah, the
being
chance
a double.
for failure is kind of bad on a double action.
And also, if you're hiding your corpse grinder cults around your cargo container, I'm putting a 5-inch blast template of whatever I have onto that entire thing.
What did Kevin call it? The party bus?
He called it the Dwarven party bus.
Yeah.
And then he stopped doing that after the first photon flash grenade hit his entire team.
Yes. So I basically what I'm seeing is that this is as your Ridge Hauler is driving up with the corpse grinders on it. But yeah, there's definitely ways to play around it.
Yeah, it's not amazingly good. No. Unlike the rest of Corpse Runner cults, this does not break the game.
Yeah, it's also the newest rules, so there's that.
Yeah.
The real cool part is the other upgrade that it can take, which is the meat grinder.
Now, this is actually for any vehicle.
This is for any vehicle.
Yeah.
It is 20 credits, and when you run over a fighter with a move action, they get -2 to their initiative and an additional +1 AP. Sorry, -1 AP. From the attack that ensues.
So normally when you run over somebody, they get a initiative check with a +1 to dodge.
Yep.
So unless they're a dwarf, they're probably going to be okay. This one gives them -2 to that check, and then also an additional AP.
Yeah.
So it makes it way more viable to run people down as a...
For only 20 credits, it's pretty good.
It's fun.
Yeah.
They also have Grizzly Trophies, which is 45 credits. Enemy fighters must pass a willpower check to target this vehicle in close combat. Now, we did cover... Close combat is a great way to kill vehicles with the right weapons. So this could be insurance against that.
It's not nothing.
Like, one of my favorite ways to kill a Ridge Hauler is to jump an Orlock Wrecker on top of it with a Last Cutter.
Right.
They have terrible willpower.
Oh, yeah, they do.
This 45 credits would be an insurance against me doing that.
It's true. I wonder what I'm taking when I take Corpse Grinder Cults.
I wonder if I'm taking a las cannon against your Corpse Grinder Cults.
And the next one is simultaneously the most expensive and the least useful.
And the absolute worst.
It's called the Feast Table, which is all friendly fighters within 9 inches may reroll failed cool checks.
I mean, at least it's 9 inches, but not for 90 credits.
For 90 credits.
Not for 90 credits.
And what's the number one thing that cool checks are for? Shooting somebody that isn't the closest target. And Corpse Grinder cults are like,
Don't
shoot.
Hey, juvies.
Yes, but they're going to be nowhere near your vehicles.
To be fair, Infiltrate is less useful in the Ash Waste,
That's
where it's
true.
way easier to get picked out and run over by a passing car.
That's true.
If you infiltrate too aggressively.
Yeah, that's true. Easier to get line of sight to be able to counter infiltrate.
Right. It's harder to infiltrate because you have to be out of line of sight.
Yeah.
You know what I call infiltrators in Ash Wastes? Speed bumps.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, you're alone. All right. Let's talk about the weapons. Because on top of everything else, they got some absolutely amazing weapons. Now, note of point of order. When this book was released, it specifically added all of these weapons to the trading post.
Yes.
But the most recent trading post says that this is the trading post. Anything that's not on here is not in the trading post.
Right.
You could kind of go either way. The problem is...
I disagree.
Well, okay. I mean, as far as, like, I think that rules as written, take a drink, it's pretty clear that the trading post is the trading post.
Yes.
The real problem is that one of these weapons is so good for how cheap it is that you should not let everybody get it. Because it's already a problem of, like, Necromunda has some things that are just everyone wants one. This one has one thing in particular that is so good that if you don't take it as a melee weapon, you are making the wrong choice. You could say that these are just industrial tools that everyone on Necromunda would have access to through the trading post. That is the lore reason to include them if you choose to. Just be aware what you're doing if you make that choice. If you are playing a game and you're playing someone who's not Corpse Grinder cults and you're trying to pull a fast one by saying, oh, the book says this, keep in mind that's not going to work unless you've discussed it with your arbitrator first. Right. Because the trading post document is very clear that the trading post is the trading post now, and what's not on there is not in the trading post.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about them. The first one and the most important one is the Boning Sword. The Boning Sword is 20 credits. So, for 5 credits cheaper than a Chainsword, you lose the +1 to hit. What you get is strength attack, like the Chainsword, AP 2, damage 2, still have parry, and you get rending. For 20 credits.
If you couldn't have guessed, that was the weapon we're talking about.
Yeah.
When it was on the trading post, it was, oh my god, why wouldn't I take this?
Right. Like, the Chainsword is good. It's AP1, it's 1 damage, it's got parry, it's got +1 to hit, and it's only got a strength. This one still only has its space strength weapon, so, strength 3 on your basic guys. But AP2 and damage 2 is just so good.
It lasts you the whole campaign.
Yeah. And it can last you the whole campaign on your Corpse Grinder cults, too.
Yeah.
Except for all the other stuff that's better.
Next is so there's sets of weapons, which are the Butcher's Chain Cleaver and the paired Butcher's Chain Cleaver.
Yeah.
Basically, the only difference is one of them has paired.
Yeah.
And is more expensive, obviously. So for 45 credits, you get +1, strength +1, AP2 damage 2, and shred on your melee weapon. And then the paired is 80 credits for the same thing, except also paired.
Remember, paired doubles the number of attacks in the charge?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's really good.
I mean, it's a 10 credit discount over buying 2 of them.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah.
It takes up two of your weapon slots, but I mean,
yeah.
At that point, who cares?
Well, what else are you going to use it on? A gun?
Yeah,
no.
Exactly.
So shred is double AP if the wound roll is 6. So AP 4.
What? It didn't need Melta AP.
It didn't need any of this. So next up is the Butcher's Cleaver, which is kind of a downgrade. This is one of your cheaper ones. It's only 25 credits. It's strength +1, but AP 1, damage 1 with disarm.
Yeah.
In a vacuum, that's good. You're not going to take that over a Boning Sword.
No.
AP 2, damage 2 is worth losing strength +1.
Mm-hmm. Next is the Flensing Knife, which is basically the backstabby one.
It's basically the fighting knife.
Basically the fighting knife, except it exchanged backstab for running.
So it's a face stab knife.
Yeah, it's why be sneaky? Says the guy with infiltrate. Regular strength, -1 AP, 1 damage, and rending.
Yep.
It's fine.
It's 15 credits.
Oh yeah, 15
Same
credits.
cost as a fighting knife. It's just better without the backstab, I guess.
Yeah.
Then you have the heavy chain cleaver / paired heavy chain cleaver. The heavy chain cleaver is 90 credits. This is one of your prestige options. So the heavy chain cleaver is strength +2, +1 to hit, which is good. Strength +2, AP2, damage 2. It's also got sever. Remember, sever is if you just do any damage, you kill them.
Basically, instead of rolling a injury dice, they're dead.
Yeah. Which is really good.
It's stupidly good.
The only reason you don't necessarily want to take the heavy chain cleaver, which is 90 credits, or the paired version for 130 credits, which is quite the savings, is it comes with the +1 to hit, and your butcher doesn't necessarily need that because he's got 2-up weapon skill.
Yes.
Unless you put the thing on him that gives him -1 to hit on the charge, which gives him so many attacks.
Yes. This is good on your champions, which have a base 3-up.
Yes.
Making them a 2-up is stupid.
Yes.
None of these weapons should have +1 to hit.
No.
None of them.
No. And to be fair, only 2 of them do.
Only 2 of them. Well, it's actually the same one twice.
Oh yeah, only one of them does.
And lastly is honestly personally my favorite.
The only versatile one too.
The only versatile one, which is stupid because the champions get a bonus and you take versatile weapons.
Yeah,
but anyway,
which means I guess they're supposed to take this, but well.
Yeah, it's 55 credits for a versatile weapon with a 4-inch range.
The closest thing you have to ranged.
Yeah. It is -1 to hit if you're not in base contact, unfortunately.
Which hurts.
Which is a little weird. It should be -1 to hit in base contact.
Right.
+1 strength, -2 AP, 2 damage. Knockback, shred, and versatile, obviously.
Remember, your champions have strength 4, so this is going up to strength 5.
Yes.
It's the rotary flensing saw. We didn't say the name of it.
No, rotary flensing saw.
Which is, first off, just the coolest looking weapon they have,
Yeah.
and also the coolest and most terrifying name. Your heavy chain cleaver is your prestige option, and the one you might want to go with if you want to do damage later. The rotary flensing saw I would only put on like a couple guys with the plan of using versatile. The thing is you can go expensive on a couple guys and then just give everyone else boning saw swords.
Yeah.
And they're so good that it doesn't matter. Yeah. But we haven't gotten to the most bull crap of the equipments because they have a cult icon. That's right. Remember how we always say cult icons are kind of bad? Not this one.
This one is different from all the other cult icons. They can take a regular cult icon.
You don't.
But you don't. So the regular cult icon for posterity is you can group activate 1 extra model.
Ooh, you go ooga chaka, wooga,
Yeah.
wooga.
So instead of 2, you get 3, or instead of 3, you get 4.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
It's there is use for it.
There is use for it.
But
not here.
Not here.
The corpse grinder cult icon, rules as written, take a drink, doesn't take an action. All friendly fighters.
Well, it says they may make the following action.
Yeah, but it doesn't say if it's a simple or a basic or anything.
So, well, let's read what it says.
Okay.
All friendly fighters that are, first off, this can only be carried by a leader or champion.
Yes.
All friendly fighters that are completely within 6 inches, this is before they decided to use the word wholly within, within 6 inches of this fighter that have a ready marker and are standing and active, add D3 inches to their move characteristic until the end phase of the round. So, it just says that if the fighter carrying this icon is standing and active, they may make the following action. Now, making an action is a defined term in Necromunda, which means this uses at least some kind of action.
Yes.
And not a free one, presumably.
See, you said presumably.
In the article where they announced this, they said it was a simple action.
Oh, I didn't see that.
That is the closest thing we have to any kind of consensus on this.
They said it was simple?
Yes.
That's even worse.
Yes, it is. So remember, a simple action is one that you can do twice.
Why would they make it a simple action?
So rules as written, it just says make an action, and there's no definition of that.
Right.
So that doesn't mean that it's not a free. It's weird because there's no way to argue this in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
I could say you can't argue it's free action. You technically could. You shouldn't.
No.
Like,
it shouldn't
that's
be free.
very silly. The normal cult icon doesn't take any action at all. It's just a passive buff.
Right.
But this one does say you have to take an action. Now,
I would argue it takes at least 1 action point.
whether it takes a simple, basic, or double is the question.
Yes.
First off, this is very, 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 very good.
Yes. Take 1, period.
Take one, use it.
It's what, 50 credits?
Yes. It does take an action, at least one, of your champion or leader. Your champion, you're not putting this on your leader.
Okay, no.
So that is not a not trade-off.
Yeah.
Like action economy, that's not a nothing trade-off because that guy can't then charge.
Right.
If you say it is a simple action, which means he could do it twice and you're adding D6 inches movement to everybody.
Not D6. 2d3.
2d3, sorry. 2d3.
Which is better.
Yes, because it's between 2 to 6 inches. It also doesn't say whether you roll for each person individually. You only roll once.
That's true.
I say you roll for each person individually.
Oh, see, when I played it, we did roll once.
Again, it's not written down. By the way, it's not in the FAQ.
No, of course not.
So this one you need to discuss with your arbitrator. Mm-hmm. Here is our advice. It is a simple action because if your champion uses 2 of his actions to do this, he does give everyone else 2d3 movement, but he doesn't do anything.
Yeah, he just stands there and
which also means he can't do it again next turn because everyone moves out of range.
Yes. So he has to move up, maybe do it.
Right.
Yeah.
So that is a trade-off. That's probably the more powerful one.
Yeah.
If you want to, and we'll talk about why you might want to do this, if you want to nerf Corpse Grinder Cults a bit, make this a double action.
Ooh, damn.
That's rough, though.
I was going to say make it a basic.
Basic is probably the in-between.
Yeah.
Making a double is rough, is roughy-toughy. That's making it into the... You'd still use it, though.
Yeah, I would.
You would still use it because...
You set it up, he chants, everybody...
Turn 1, that lets you get early.
Yeah.
If that was all this said and we had no... I forget what the word for it is, where your perception gets skewed by what once was.
Oh, yeah.
This happens a lot in wargaming, right? Especially, for example, the new Age of Sigmar version. Mm-hmm. You have to be careful not to look at, for example, what Thankful used to be, because he's not that anymore.
Yeah.
If you're comparing to what he was in the old world, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Same thing here. If we only knew this as a double action that added D3 inches movement to every single friendly within 6 inches, you would say this is amazing, take it every time.
Yeah.
And that is an argument to make it a double. The unfortunate thing is that the closest thing we have to codification on this is a Warhammer community article from when this was released.
Right.
That is the closest thing to Word of God. And that's, I think, is acceptable.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And that's not too broken, asterisk, anything more than anything else is. Obviously, it's very good, and you should take it. All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty discussion of what the heck is wrong with this.
Okay. I've played Corpse Grinder Cults multiple times now.
Yes.
I will play them again because they are very fun. Mm-hmm. They start so unbelievably strong that because their stats are insane, their weapons are insane, like all of their abilities are ridiculous. But they peter out. All of the other gangs can get stronger than this.
What do you mean? Because I'm looking at the weapons they get.
Uh-huh.
And those weapons are the kind of weapons I'm getting late game on my guys. Strength 1 on a 4-strength model. So Strength 5, AP 2, 2 damage is something that if I get late game, I'm happy.
So because there exists Meltas and Lasguns and Flamers and the further you get in a campaign, the better your ways to counter them become.
This is absolutely true.
Early, these guys will mulch and murder everything that they touch. And that's how it should be.
It is. I think they leaned into it too far.
You think so?
Because the big problem... So, the other thing is... We joked about this in our Vansar thing, right? Where if you think Vansar are too oppressive and too powerful, you're probably not using enough terrain.
Yes.
Corpse Grinder Cults feels like they were designed to do melee in a universe where people aren't using enough terrain.
Okay.
They feel like they're designed to succeed against Vansar at their absolute best. They have the problem. So what is the trouble with melee? Getting there without getting shot. Mm-hmm. They have the tools to mitigate that so incredibly well. Now, the big thing about this is Necromunda, which means that you have to make the choice to go all in on that.
Yes.
Just
100%.
like you have to make the choice to go all in on Vansar being not fun to fight against either, right? But Corpse Grinder Cults played like that are a bigger problem than anything else in the game.
Yeah.
If you play them like that. As with everything, if you are playing Corpse Grinder Cults, you're not a problem. Let's be really clear on that, because I really hate when people do that, right? You're playing Vansar. Of course you are.
Yeah.
No, Vansar are not inherently a problem. If you're playing on the plains of the desert where there is no cover and except for the tower the Vansar are all standing in, then they're not fun. They're not fun to fight against. The problem with Corpse Grinder Cults is that my view of how you should be playing Necromunda makes them really powerful. Oh my god, the new Underhells campaign with Corpse Grinder Cults, the Gene Stealers don't stand a chance. We want to wipe out High Secundus. Helmore sends out a new order. Right. Put all the Corpse Grinder Cults in a box and ship them in.
Open the door and say, They have blood.
Let them fight. Sir, Hive Secundus is now a Gene Stealer corn party, and we don't know what happened. You got to be careful with Corpse Grinder cults. They are weak to pinning, but they can get so darn fast. And again, early game is a way bigger problem for everyone else than late game, because late game you have way more tools. The problem is that in Necromunda, early game is kind of what dictates the late game.
Yeah.
And
there is a snowball problem.
Right. The problem with Corpse Grinder cults is unless you are playing with lots of verticality in your terrain, that is also the one thing that we didn't talk a lot about that, because it's the hardest and most expensive kind of terrain to set up.
True.
If you play with verticality, Corpse Grinder cults have a much harder time.
True.
Because they don't have ways around that.
They don't have clamor.
Like, I mean, ladders are ladders.
Yeah.
But verticality, blind charging around corners, they don't care about the -1 to hit.
Yeah, usually not.
But verticality means you have way more ways to shoot them. Like, in my games with you, the ones where I've had success against the Corpse Grinder cults are ones where I abused verticality to my advantage, not the ones where I've abused cover.
That's fair.
Because cover, they like it too. And I can't get any way around that. Verticality, they hate that. But the thing about Corpse Grinder cults is once they get to you, it feels like you can't do anything.
Yeah.
Which is the problem with Van Sar, like we talked about. If it feels like, especially if there's not enough line of sight blocking terrain, not cover, because a Van Sar champion doesn't care about hard cover.
Shouldn't be 2 up to hit.
He's got 2 up.
That's fine. Yeah. Well, only the leader has 2 up to hit here.
Like, he's got 2 up to hit, and he's probably aiming, has the infrasight. He doesn't care about your hard cover. You need line of sight blocking terrain. Same thing with these guys. Once they actually get to you, with the exception of, like, unless they throw their juvies with, like, flails and auto pistols at you, it can feel like you have absolutely no hope, because they have so many attacks and so much damage too on their weapons, on their good weapons, which is what they're taking, that it feels like, all right, like, I don't get to do anything.
Oh, you made that charge? I'm just going to pick this model up.
Right, yeah, that can what it feels like, and that's never a good thing.
No.
That doesn't mean don't play them. Again, got to really stress that.
Yeah.
It just means that when you're playing Corpse Grinder cults, if you go all in on, I have the absolute amazing melee models, and all of my infiltrating juvies are spamming web template weapons. It's like everything else in Necromunda,
Yeah.
Everyone played maximally, someone's going to have a bad time.
Agreed.
But it does feel like, I mean, Necromunda balance is a joke.
Yeah.
This is a really funny joke.
It is a funny joke.
This is the aristocrats.
This is the funniest joke I'm going to be telling next campaign.
Yeah, this is the piece de resistance of the bad joke that is Necromunda balance. When you've got juvies running around for 25 credits.
25 credits with infiltrate.
With infiltrate.
Honestly, you could have reduced every single one of those stats by 1.
That's the other thing, is like, general, their stats are amazing.
Yeah.
Like, their stats are really great.
Their juvies still hit on 4s for some reason.
Yeah. Corpse Grinder cults are the ones that we often, like, it used to be that you would hear, how do I fight Van Sar? Now you hear, how do I fight Corpse Grinder cults? Yeah. They're kind of the boogeyman of Necromunda. So let's talk a little bit about how do you fight Corpse Grinder cults. So, seismic. Verticality in your terrain. This doesn't, like, I don't want to, like, with Van Sar we said use more terrain. I'm not going to say to use less terrain.
No.
Use more terrain. Use verticality if you can. Make sure there are sight lines, like areas where you can control. Certain gangs are better or worse suited. The really big problem is that Goliath and Ogren have a really bad time with the masks.
Yeah, that's true. There are certain gangs that, because you have to make a check to do basically anything to the leader and champion, they could just fail.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah, and you could just not get to play. And we tried playing with toning that down, and then it felt like it was too far in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
It felt like the mask didn't do anything.
It's a weird balance. It is an odd one, but I feel like if the masks don't work as written, they're not.
Yeah, like we tried playing with changing the masks, and then they did nothing.
Yeah.
And then it's no fun for the Corpse Grinder player, because then you have no way of mitigating getting shot. Like, instead of pinning mitigation, they have getting shot mitigation, which is worse.
Yeah.
Like, I wish they had just put Nerves of Steel in the masks.
Yeah.
That would have been better. As Goliath or Ogren, all you can really do is use template weapons or blast weapons.
Yeah.
And I hate saying that, because, like, that's all you have.
I mean, you could charge them first.
Yeah, if you can get the charge off, because they're not defensive.
No, they're not defensive. The best thing they have is toughness 4 on their leader, and everybody else is just normal.
The problem is that they're not defensive, but they are almost always going to get that charge before you do.
Yep.
Because they have way more mobility.
And if you don't kill them, you're probably dead.
Yeah, even off the charge.
Yep.
That's about all your hope. And it really sucks because this is one of the only instances where it feels like a gang has such an absolute downside against another gang.
Yeah. It feels very rock, paper, scissors, which I feel like Necromunda shouldn't be.
Right.
But
because that's not a fun way. Like in a campaign, sure, it might balance out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Vansar don't particularly care about these guys.
No, not really.
Because you've got great shooting.
Their stats are good enough to ignore the masks.
You have great willpower on your Vansar. Like, Delok also do not give a crap about Corpse Grinder cults if you're playing to your strengths, because your willpower is fantastic on most of your Delok. Mm-hmm. You have lots of access to weapons, which these guys hate.
Oh, yeah.
And you have shenanigans for making sure that first, that they don't get the first strike.
Yeah.
Which is great, but that, again, like you said, that feels very rock, paper, scissors, and I don't like that in Necromunda.
Yeah.
Because it's like the only example of that.
It doesn't feel good to find out what your opponent's playing and go, oh, I've already lost this.
Yeah, what is this, 40K?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which, I mean, I guess if you're used to that, it's fine.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean don't play them. Again, I really want to stress that we're not saying that you should not play Corpse Grinder cults. And we also, as you've noticed, we don't have a lot of house rule suggestions for them either.
Yeah, we tried a few, and it didn't feel right.
It's hard to touch these guys without the House of Cards coming down.
Yeah, they're very finely tuned.
Yeah, to be complete.
They're perfectly balanced in so much that if you touch them, they fall over.
Perfectly balanced.
One way or the other.
Like a throwing spear.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's Corpse Grinder cults.
Yeah.
Otherwise, so template weapons.
Yep, template weapons.
Because remember, you do not have to pass a willpower check to shoot them.
Right.
Seismic. Blast.
Yeah.
Vehicles.
Yeah.
Corpse Grinder cults are weak in ash wastes.
Corpse Grinder cults run screaming at a ridge hauler, and the ridge hauler goes...
Yeah, that is one thing in the new Ash. Well, that's the thing. Until Hive Secundus came out, we would have said that Corpse Grinder cults' stock had gone down.
Yep.
Because Ash Waste was kind of the way to play, and Corpse Grinder cults do not like the Ash Wastes.
They don't.
Infiltrate or whatever, they still got to run screaming across the sands to get there, and everyone's just like, oh, yeah, that's really nice. With Hive Secundus...
Yeah, well, I mean, we got to see how that plays out, but...
it's tight spaces. I know exactly how that's playing out.
Yeah, terrifying.
So, speaking of terrifying, do you have a sample list for us?
I do. So, my sample list. This is an Ash Waste list because I was really, really, enthralled with the upgrades to the Ridge Hauler.
And you can't go wrong with normal Corpse Grinders. Just put good weapons on just put the Boning Sword on everybody and win.
I have found that the Boning Sword on the Juvies is what you should do, but it's also not an auto win because they only have one attack.
Yes, they have to charge and get that wound roll through, and then they automatically kill whatever they hit.
Yeah. So I am at 1395, so I'm only 5 points down. I have my leader. I gave him an armored undersuit and the rotary flensing saw because he is the only one that has a base 2 up to hit, so getting the -1 isn't as big of a deal. And with a 4-inch melee and D6 inches on the charge, he's getting there.
Yeah, he has an incredible ability to reach out and touch somebody in the worst way.
Yeah. He's 210 credits, and I gave him Rain of Blows, which is you can make multiple fight actions in the same turn.
Yes.
So with your 4-inch melee, if you can touch 2 guys,
you spin me right round, baby,
exactly.
Right round.
So he's swinging it above his head. Very fun, very flavorful, very, very kill stuff. Next, I have a champion, which has the paired Butcher's Chain Cleavers, which is the Shred one. He has the Cult Icon, because you should. And
especially in Ash Wastes.
And I gave him Slaughterborn, which is the good one, because he needs to make up for the fact that he's using an action to get the other guys there. Eventually, when he starts murdering things, he'll be faster. Also 210 credits. I took a second champion because it's what you should do. And on this guy, I went a little different. I gave him the Heavy Rock Saw because that is on their list.
They do have access to that.
It is +1 to hit, Strength +3, AP -3, and damage 2 with rending.
Strength 3. So it's more AP, more strength, more AP than your normal weapons.
Yes.
Very good for cracking open vehicles.
Yes. Which again, I'm in the Ashway, so that makes sense. I didn't really know what skill to give him because I don't like spamming the same skill over and over again. I didn't want to give him Slaughterborn.
Just give him the D3 attacks one. Who cares?
True. I ended up giving him Step Aside to be able to like get there a little easier.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because he doesn't really have a way to get faster.
No.
Then I took, I believe it was two Skinners, 2 Gangers, both with just a Boning Sword and a Wasteland Dirt Bike. Because, oh boy, do Corpse Grinder cults love being speed 8.
Yes.
So I basically have this thought in my head of my leader and champions riding my vehicle, which I will get to, my Gangers all on bikes, which I converted from wargs from Lord of the Rings, so they're riding beasts. And then all my Juvies have Infiltrate, so everybody has a way to get there faster. 110 credits for each of those. Then my aforementioned Juvies. Boning Sword, because you should, an auto pistol, and smoke grenades, again, to help your other guys get in. The fact that you can take grenades on anybody is very, very dumb. You can take melta charges. You can take incendiary grenades. Later, you take incendiary grenades.
Yes.
Because it doesn't matter if you hit, it's a 5-inch template that sets things on fire. And the fact that your leader and champion start with strength 4 means they go farther.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because they have a 12-inch base at that point.
Strength times 3 range.
Strength
yeah.
times 3. And I took that. Hang on, how many times? 1, 2, 3. I took 3 initiates with that loadout. And then I have my Ridge Hauler with the refrigerator upgrade and the meat grinder to start with.
Because why not?
Yep. So all in all, that was 435 points in vehicle stuff. So vehicles plus the 2 dirt bikes.
Vroom, vroom.
Yep. And yeah, I'm going to meat grind some stuff. That's the plan. Very simple to start. Basically, the only strange things are what the leaders and champions would do.
Yeah. So it is worth noting that the initiates don't have a lot of ranged weapons on their house list.
So no, they basically just have pistols.
So you can't start with any good weapon on there. If you want to do the giving initiates good weapons, you got to get there.
Yeah.
So that is worth noting. They're a little less powerful for that. So yeah, that's Corpse Grinder cults. Probably the first example of a very skewed gang.
Yes.
Because we talked about Enforcers as an example of the first non-house gang.
Vansar is very skewed towards ranged.
It is, but Vansar also has other, like, Vansar is very skewed towards range, but it's not the super long range that they used to be.
Yeah.
And they do have other things that either give them the ability to survive in melee or get out of melee, or, like the energy shields, the Arachna rigs, the stuff like that. Corpse Grinder cults are skewed in the sense of, whereas Vansar can actually kind of play anywhere. Like, Vansar can play perfectly well in Zone Mortalis. You can't spam sniper rifles, but you can do it. Corpse Grinder cults, like we talked about, are way more rock, paper, scissors, where they do super well in certain situations and really poorly in others.
Yep.
They're the first example of that, and you're going to see more of that as we go into these other weirder gangs.
Yep.
So keep that in mind. Corpse Grinder cults are a gang a lot of people start with.
Yes.
Because they are the very overtly chaos gang.
They are de facto chaos. They look amazing.
Yes, they do look really good. And it's not necessarily a bad choice.
Right.
Just be careful when you're playing with other folks to not completely grind them into the dust.
Yeah.
But that's true of Necromunda in general, so nothing really new there. And that's it for Corpse Grinder cults. So not sure what we're going to do next. Probably going to go swing backwards maybe into Squats or Nomads, one of the other gangs. Let us know below if you have a preference of what we do next. It's not going to be Venators. I think Venators and Outcasts will probably be last.
Venators, you're lucky if we even put you on the list.
We're doing it. We'll talk about it. I want to talk about it. Fine, I'll do it alone.
I played Venators.
They're not that bad.
They're kind of bad. Anyway.
But we'll get there. But let us know below when you want us to get there. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.